Hello, welcome to the Elevate Your Wellbeing podcast. We are on episode 27. So before we dive into today's topic, this week's topic, do make sure that you're somewhere comfy, you've got some water, you are in a nice sunny spot, get some natural light on you, you have your journal and a pen. If you're listening to this in a car or you're enjoying a walk or a run, awesome. Do make note of your reactions, your responses. You might then come back and re-listen to this episode. So this week, I am highlighting the anti-hustle culture. So why am I talking about this? So over the past few years, I've been really evaluating how I feel in my business. It has really been a transformational journey. And I really want to highlight that it is a journey, which I find fun in many ways. But in 2 days' time, we have a full moon in the sign of Sagittarius. And Sagittarius is the traveler and the philosopher. It's all about embracing different cultures, exploring what's completely different to what we're used to, aka getting out of your comfort zone. And your comfort zone is beautiful. I'm not here to diss the comfort zone unless you feel stuck or frustrated. And that's somewhere I've really found myself. I've felt stuck and frustrated, which is why I've really enjoyed pivoting a little bit more away from teaching yoga. I don't really associate myself as a yoga teacher anymore, even though I still teach yoga. I really do bring a lot of aspects of the wellbeing coaching into what I do. And this is where I've really pivoted myself is what's this journey for me? What am I here to do? Who am I here to help? And I really hope if you're enjoying these episodes, if you're still with me for episode 27 now, that you are having a lot of takeaways from what I'm sharing every single week, which I really appreciate. And for me, it's reflecting back on my journey of slowing down. I touched on this, I think, 2 episodes ago. Let me have a quick little look. Yeah, 2 episodes ago, episode 25, New Moon in Taurus. So how can you slow down? The sweetness of doing nothing. And it really made me think and reflect on my journey that, very easily in 2018, 2019, I was still very much go, go, go. I would be pushing out 12+ hour days. And you might be listening to this and be like, yeah, that's normal. It might be what's normal. It's not what's healthy. If you are over pushing yourself, overworking yourself, you are burning out, even if you're not aware of it. So there are things that, like if you take time off, or I'll rephrase that, when you take time off, because hopefully you are, but do you get to enjoy it completely? So if you feel like your body wants to shut down and you end up spending like a week off, or even your weekends off, if you haven't got plans, if you're not cramming yourself in with loads of things to do, which keeps you in that busy burnout stress cycle without even being aware of it, because that has become your normal, are you just tired and fatigued? When you actually take time to stop and pause, you realize how tired you actually are. And that is a sign of like adrenal fatigue. And this is why the anti-hustle culture is a big thing I've really started looking into and really associate with, because I really want to help you realize that you can ditch the hustle culture. Now, it's not about being lazy. And this is what I want to really highlight. One of my favorite mentors that I've been working with since 2020 without her knowing about it, as in I've read all her books, done all her freebies, and listened to her podcast. And then this year I signed up for her mentorship. And it has really, really made a big difference. And I highlight that as well, because if you're here listening to the podcast, you're doing things that I offer for free, and you're seeing little shifts and transformations. It's incredible what you get when you actually have that accountability from someone. This is why I really highlight this as something that I'm really passionate about doing, because I've seen and felt the transformation myself. I know what it can do for you. And she coins the term chillpreneur. Chillpreneur. And yeah, it can be a little bit eye rolly because it was a big thing, I think, back in 2020 of let's take entrepreneur and change it into mompreneur or solopreneur or whatever it is. And it can be a bit like quite lame. sort of thing. So it's honoring that you can work your business in a way that feels good for you. Or you can focus on your career or your home life in a way that feels good for you. As in, it's not let's overfill everything with constantly doing something. It's blocking in times of rest. Yes, you will have seasons and cycles where you might find that you're hustling a bit more than you normally would. So, for example, if you're in a business and you're launching, or if you're in a career or a job where you have projects going on, so you might find that your workload increases. But if you have those time blocks where you rest, if you have those routines, those practices, like a morning routine and an evening routine in place, so it helps keep you balanced, this really will help. So when you do have to have those seasons of an increased workload, it still helps you from burning out, that you're not going through this vicious cycle. And it was amazing reflecting back how much I was pushing. And it was from a need of, wanting to make this a full-time gig, and loving doing it. But it's so ironic when we focus so much on giving that we forget to give to ourselves as well. So this is what I really focus on when I talk about the anti-hustle culture. It's really about finding that work-life balance. So as this episode goes live later today, I'm actually doing a masterclass, and this is something I plan to do once a month on slightly different topics. But I'm actually doing a masterclass on creating a happy and healthy work-life balance. And if you're listening to this and it's gone past 2 p.m. UK time, then still click on the link in the show notes, because you'll be able to purchase the recording and you'll be able to work along with that with me. Obviously, it won't be live. So if you are able to join live, then you get the opportunity to ask questions. Or if you have purchased your spot and you're not able to join live, you can still send in questions. This is the intention that I want to do. So if you can't join in live, and I will be doing these on different days and different times to see which one works best for yourselves. Also around my sort of schedule with my work and my coaching business and for rest for myself. And I really have been highlighting this a lot on my Instagram stories lately. So if this is something that you struggle with, you know you struggle with it, or you're actually not sure, because again, if you haven't ever done a lifestyle audit, this is something I get all my clients to do. If you have never done a lifestyle audit, I really highly recommend doing this, because it really highlights where you're out of balance. On the masterclass, or during the masterclass, we're going to have a little practical play with a way of working through 4 key areas of our life and finding where that imbalance is, which I really love to do. It's something that I highlight with clients to do like at least once a year, or in moments of feeling stuck or frustrated. So that comfort zone really isn't a comfort zone, but we feel like we shouldn't have to leave it because we've worked so hard to create it. Or you could do it as a 90-day review. We've done the 90-day reviews a few times on the podcast. So, and there'll be one coming up soon as well. It can be a really nice way to reflect. So that might be something I highlight in the next 90-day review. So do let me know. And I always encourage you to get in touch with me. There's all sorts of ways to get in touch with me, which are listed in the show notes. Or tag me on Instagram, like that you're listening to the podcast. What were your takeaways? So I just really wanted to highlight that anti-hustle culture isn't a bad thing. I think we go from these insane extremes. Like I can remember the "I'll sleep when I'm dead" like memes, like push, 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 and I can't survive without my coffee. And a lot of people are really realizing that's not the way to go. But if that's what you're used to, that's your norm, it can feel hard to shift away from it, because we sometimes think that being a chillpreneur can feel lazy. That anti-hustle culture is a lazy mindset or a lazy view, but it's working at a slower pace that is actually healthy for you, and you actually get to be more productive. So a lot of the tools that I've already shared over the last few months on the podcast, I'll be diving into more on this masterclass, or we dive into more as one-on-one clients when we work together, because we really find what works for you. And it's really interesting going through that shift and honoring how much more productive you can be when you embrace that anti-hustle mindset in how you run your business, or how you are in your career, or how you are with scheduling your time and sticking with boundaries. And I want to try and keep this podcast episode short. I think that's my intention for the foreseeable future. Most of these are quite short, unless I go on a bit of more of a tangent. But my aim is always to try and keep these to like 15 minutes. They're nice and short and sweet, so you can kind of dip in, get a little bit of a taster of something, and then hopefully you can implement that into your life. Well, this just gives you that little aha moment to think about where you are in your life. But boundaries are really key for helping you with this anti-hustle culture, especially if you're used to overdoing, over-delivering, and overworking. So you go through a lifestyle audit and see where you block in your time. How do you block in your time? Do you get a planner so you can block out your time? Work with tools so you can block out your time and really focus on one thing rather than multitasking. I do really see multitasking as hustling. You might be like, I'm multitasking, but doing all the things, but you're stretching yourself and you're not being productive for that one thing that needs doing. Now, I'm all about habit stacking. That's a very different thing. And it's that unconscious competence that really helps you with that. Whereas if you're having to really focus on multiple things, you're multitasking, you're hustling, you're trying to get everything done, and you're not really going to get the best result from it. But I wanted to highlight something I saw about boundaries, which I thought was really beautiful before I give you our journaling prompt for this week, because I think this really resonates with how some people feel boundaries are. And it was this quote with, your boundary need not be an angry electric fence that shocks those who touch it. It can be a consistent light around you that announces, I will be treated sacredly. And I thought that was really beautiful, because it's not that you're telling people to piss off. Like, sometimes no can feel like that, but it's standing in that sovereign being that you are. Like, no, that is not what I can do. Because right now I'm focusing on this, or no, that isn't what I'm here to do. So, it's focusing on what you are doing and what you're creating. And that's where that anti-hustle can come into as well, because you haven't got these expectations that you can be here, there, and everywhere. And if this is something that you have questions on, or if you want to dive into more on, do join me on this masterclass that's happening today, or click on the link in the show notes to purchase the recording. And then you get to keep that for life. There's also a workbook that will be sent out with the recording, so you can go deeper into the practical workshopping part of the masterclass, which I'm really excited about. And if you need help with any of those little areas I've highlighted, book in with your one-to-one with me. We have 90 minutes, that's an hour and a half. And my diary or my calendar is in the show notes. If dates or times don't work for you, do ping me a message and I'll see if there is something that I can tweak. So I have my basic hours, but I know we can be global here. So we've got people that are listening in Australia and America and Canada and all over Europe, which is really fascinating and fabulous. So I appreciate all of you are in different time zones. So do reach out, because I do have more availability on my client diary. So once you've had that initial one-to-one, I open up my wider calendar. So obviously, if you're working with me for 3 months or 6 months, you have more availability with connecting with me every week. But that might be something that I can open up for a one-off, one-on-one with yourself. So do let me know. All the details are in the show notes. So grab your journal, and I want you just to think about, how can you stand in your power with your boundaries? How can you stand in your power with your boundaries? So do you resist saying no a lot? Do you just say yes? Are you a bit of a people pleaser? You don't want to let people down? This can be when we end up overloading ourselves because we can't say no. And I'm all about giving to people. I've overgiven over the last few years, but I've realized it didn't do me any good. And then it didn't do them any good, because if it creates resentment, it means you're not putting in what you're doing with love, which I think is really, really important. So do look at where you could also work with your boundaries. And that is, again, I will just highlight before I close off for this week's episode. Working with a coach, whether that's with me or with someone else, but if that is with us, I love to help you with support and accountability. So it's looking at how you can shift your mindset with supporting yourself, creating those boundaries, and I help hold you to them. So it isn't wishy-washy. It's like, do you give me that permission to highlight where you are dropping on those goals that you have with yourself, to set these boundaries and set this lifestyle up for yourself that you deserve, but you maybe keep getting walked over a bit. So I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to see you on the masterclass, either the one coming up today or in a month's time. So all the details are in the show notes. And like I said, I'm going to try and keep these short and sweet. I want to just sort of drop in with a little bit of information, and then, yeah, hopefully that gets your mind ticking and rolling with what I'm leaving you with. So enjoy this weekend, and I will see you next week.